Welcome to another audit walkthrough video from SuperfastCPA. I'm Logan, and in today's video, we're going to be going over audit area 4. This is section B2. This is a remembering and understanding topic. Identify the factors that a practitioner should consider when issuing an agreed upon procedures report for an attestation engagement. And in the previous video, we talked about attestation engagements kind of in general, but now we're focusing more on agreed upon procedures. And we're going to be doing that the SuperfastCPA way, which is diving straight into the questions to learn the material. Now, if you don't know much about our strategies, make sure you go to SuperfastCPA.com and sign up for our free 1-hour webinar training. Again, it is free, it is only 1 hour long, and we will teach you the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam, so you don't waste months or even years of your time failing exams. So make sure you check out the webinar, and after you watch that, you're going to want to learn more, so make sure you also check out becoming a SuperfastCPA Pro member. Pro members get access to the full 10-question versions of these videos, so in today's video, we're only going to be going over 5 questions, but again, Pro members will get access to the full 10-question versions so that they can get a little bit more help and a little bit more understanding. So if you like this and you like our other products, make sure you check out becoming a Pro member. With all that, let's dive straight into the questions. All right, here we are at question 1, and something I always like to point out, even in situations where it might not seem super helpful, a good strategy for test day is to read the last sentence of the question first. So you read the last sentence first because that gives you context for what the question is talking about. Now, in situations where, there's only 1 or 2 sentences, it's not always super helpful, but it's still a very good habit to be in because on test day, you have no idea what you're going to be seeing in the questions. So reading that last sentence first gives you context so you know what you're dealing with. So let's practice it here. Which of the following elements is the CPA required to include in the agreed upon procedures report? Okay, let's go up to the top. A CPA is engaged to perform agreed upon procedures related to a company's royalty payment calculations under a licensing agreement. Again, which of the following elements is the CPA required to include in the agreed upon procedures report? Okay, so let's go through the options. Option A, a disclaimer of opinion on the fairness of the financial statements. Option B, a positive assurance statement that the procedures were sufficient for the intended purpose. Option C, a description of the procedures performed and the CPA's related findings, or Option D, a statement that the CPA assumes responsibility for determining the appropriateness of the procedures performed. So again, what are some of the elements that are required for an agreed upon procedures report? If you have no idea, that's okay. We are using this question and the following questions to learn about this. So let's go ahead and dive into the explanation to start learning. All right, here we are. The answer is C, a description of the procedures performed and the CPA's related findings. So that's one of the things that is required for agreed upon procedures reports. Let's go through the explanation to kind of go over a lot of the things that are required. An agreed upon procedures, or AUP, report must include a clear description of the procedures performed and the findings observed for each procedure. The CPA does not provide an opinion or assurance and does not assume responsibility for determining whether the procedures are appropriate. That is the role of the engaging party. Unlike a compilation or audit, the report also does not include a disclaimer of opinion on financial statements because the engagement is not designed to evaluate overall financial presentation. Again, an agreed upon procedures report is much smaller in scope compared to a compilation or an audit. And we'll talk a little bit more about like compilations in the future and things like that. But an agreed upon procedures report basically has to have a clear description saying what they did, what the findings were, that they aren't giving an opinion or assurance. And so it's not going to have like a disclaimer of opinion or anything like that. So those are some of the things that are required, some of the elements of an agreed upon procedures report. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 2. Before performing an agreed upon procedures engagement, which of the following must the practitioner ensure has been established? Okay, let's go through the options. Option A, the practitioner has selected procedures based on professional judgment. Option B, the responsible party has agreed to issue a written assertion about the subject matter. Option C, the practitioner has determined that the procedures will be sufficient to provide reasonable assurance. And then option D, the engaging party has acknowledged that the procedures are appropriate for their intended purpose. Okay, so again, what is something that is going to have to be established before they are going to start the agreed upon procedures engagement? If you know, that's great. If not, though, that's okay. We are using this question to continue learning. So let's go to the explanation together. All right, here we are. The answer is D. The engaging party has acknowledged that the procedures are appropriate for the intended purpose. So let's go through this. One of the key preconditions for accepting an agreed upon procedures engagement is that the engaging party, not the practitioner, so not the auditor or whoever's doing the agreed upon procedures, it's the engaging party, acknowledges that the procedures are suitable for their intended purpose. The practitioner does not select procedures based on professional judgment. Agreed upon procedures are not audits, and the practitioner only performs what is agreed upon. So they're not like doing things or choosing things based on their judgment. They're just doing what is asked of them. That's it. There's no requirement for a written assertion, and reasonable assurance is not provided in agreed upon procedures. They offer no assurance. All right, so we learned a little bit more there. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 3. Which of the following best describes the level of assurance provided in an agreed upon procedures engagement? To be honest, we did just read this, so hopefully this isn't too difficult, but let's still go through the options. Option A, no assurance, but a summary of the procedures performed and related findings is provided. Option B, limited assurance that no material modifications are necessary. Option C, reasonable assurance that the subject matter is free from material misstatement. Or option D, no assurance and no report is issued to avoid misleading users. So again, we just barely read about this, so you might be kind of in between A and D. Pause the video, think about this, and when you're ready, come back. We'll look at the answer together. All right, here we are at the answer. A, no assurance, so it's A instead of D, but a summary of the procedures performed and related findings is provided. So that's the difference. Let's go through the explanation. Agreed upon procedures engagements provide no assurance. Instead of offering a conclusion or opinion, the CPA simply performs the procedure specifically agreed upon with the engaging party and reports the factual findings. Option C describes an examination, option B describes a review, and option D is incorrect because an agreed upon procedure does result in a report, but it explicitly avoids drawing conclusions. So that's what we're trying to get at when we say there's no assurance. They're not drawing any conclusions. They're not saying, in our opinion, this is accurate or this is inaccurate. That's not what you do with an agreed upon procedures report. With the agreed upon procedures, you literally do what you were asked to do, report what happened, but you don't give any opinion, you don't give any conclusions, you just do what you were asked to do. That's it. So that's why, option C was wrong because it's an examination. Option B is wrong because it's a review because that provides some assurance. And then option D is correct in the sense that no assurance is provided, but you do have a report that you still give out. So we learned a little bit more there. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 4. Which of the following statements best explains why agreed upon procedures reports are typically restricted to specified parties? So let's go through the options. Option A, the report contains trade secrets and proprietary formulas that must remain confidential. Option B, the procedures and findings are designed for the needs of specific parties and may not be suitable for others. Option C, the CPA provides limited assurance, which could be misinterpreted by general users. Or option D, the CPA is not required to follow professional standards when issuing the report, so distribution is limited. Okay, so why are they typically restricted to specific parties? This is something that you need to know and consider when you're talking about agreed upon procedures. If you know, that's great, but if not, that's fine. We are going to use this question to learn. So let's go ahead and go to the explanation. All right, here we are. The answer is B. The procedures and findings are designed for the needs of specific parties and may not be suitable for others. So let's go into the explanation. An agreed upon procedures report is restricted to the parties who agreed to the procedures because the CPA does not express an opinion or provide assurance, only factual findings based on procedures selected by those specific parties. If distributed to the general public, the report could be misunderstood or misused. So options A and D are incorrect and misleading, and option C describes a review, not an agreed upon procedures report or engagement. So that's the idea behind this. The reason that it's usually restricted to specific parties is because it's for a very specific purpose. You are only doing the procedures that were agreed upon, nothing else. But if it got into other people's hands who didn't know the specific things that were asked or the specific procedures and, didn't understand that very well, they could misunderstand it and think, oh, they're giving an opinion, things are bad or whatever the case is. So usually it is restricted to the specified parties who asked for it or who were supposed to receive it in the first place. So we learned a little bit more there about agreed upon procedures. Now let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 5, and again, just practicing this, let's read the last sentence first. Which of the following is true regarding the CPA's reporting responsibilities in this situation? Let's go up to the top. A CPA begins an audit engagement for a non-issuer, but is later asked by the client to convert the engagement to agreed upon procedures after field work has begun. Which of the following is true regarding the CPA's reporting responsibilities in this situation? So they're changing or they're wanting to change from a normal engagement to an agreed upon procedures. So what's going to happen? Let's go through the options. Option A, the CPA may reference procedures already performed in the agreed upon procedures report since this is an exception to the general rule. Option B, the CPA must withdraw from the engagement and may not issue any report at all. Option C, the CPA may issue the AUP report, but must state that no procedures were performed before the engagement change. Or option D, the CPA may issue a compilation report instead as long as it includes a disclaimer of opinion. Okay, so again, what are they going to do? What is their responsibility when this situation happens where they're trying to change from a normal engagement to an agreed upon procedures engagement? So if you know this, that's great, but if not, again, that's fine. We are using this to learn. So let's go ahead and dive into the explanation. All right, here we are at the answer. A, the CPA may reference procedures already performed in the agreed upon procedures report since this is an exception to the general rule. So let's kind of learn about that exception and stuff like that. Normally, when an audit engagement is changed to another service, so changing to a review or a compilation, the CPA should not reference procedures already performed. However, there is an exception when the engagement is changed from an audit to an agreed upon procedures engagement because AUP reports are required to describe the procedures performed. Option B is incorrect because withdrawal is not required if the change is justified. Option C misrepresents the reporting rules, and option D is unrelated. A compilation is a different service governed by SARS, and we will learn about that in a future video. So essentially, what we're learning here is if an audit engagement specifically changes to an agreed upon procedures engagement, and that's the specific case here, then they do want to report the things that have been performed already, because that's kind of the idea behind an agreed upon procedures report. You're reporting what you did. So if you're changing from an audit to an agreed upon procedures report, then you're going to report on the procedures that were performed before you changed to an AUP report. So we learned a lot about agreed upon procedures reports in this video. Now, before we do anything else, let's do one more part of the SuperFast CPA process called pillar topics. Now, the idea behind pillar topics is as you're going through the questions to learn the material, you will notice the things that keep popping up. You've seen 2 or 3 or 4 questions trying to teach you the requirements for agreed upon procedures reports, or whatever the case is. Again, you notice these things in the questions, and as you're going, you write them out as pillar topics in your own words. And as you're doing this each day, you are building your own personal repository of the most important things you learned from the questions, and you're writing them in your own words so that you are ready for test day. So let's go ahead and take a look at the pillar topics for this video. All right, here we are at the pillar topics. Let's just dive straight in. First off, AUP reports must include specific required elements. We talked about that in question 1. Let's kind of go over that one more time. Every agreed upon procedures report must clearly list each procedure performed and the practitioner's factual findings for that procedure. No opinions, conclusions, or assurances are provided. Now let's talk about the engaging party determining the procedures. In an AUP engagement, the engaging party, not the practitioner, is responsible for selecting the procedures to be performed and for determining whether they are appropriate for the intended purpose. So unlike, with an audit where the auditor is having their own judgment, when you do an AUP engagement, the engaging party, not the practitioner/auditor, is determining the appropriateness of the procedures. Now let's talk about AUP engagements providing no assurance. Unlike audits or reviews, agreed upon procedures do not provide any level of assurance. They are not giving any opinions or anything like that. The practitioner simply reports factual findings without drawing conclusions or offering opinions. Now let's talk about AUP reports and how they're restricted for intended users usually. AUP reports are restricted use reports because the procedures are tailored for specific parties. Use by other parties may lead to misinterpretation since no assurance is provided. And then finally, let's talk about the last one. Audit engagements can be changed to AUPs with justification. When an audit engagement is changed to an AUP engagement with reasonable justification, the CPA may reference previously performed procedures in the AUP report, this as an exception to the general rule for engagement changes. So normally you can't really change, or you're not supposed to change engagements in the middle of it, but you can potentially change from an audit to an AUP, and you are going to reference the previous performed procedures in the AUP report. Now with that, we learned a lot about agreed upon procedures in this video. And remember, we only went over 5 questions, but if you go become a SuperFast CPA Pro member, you will get access to the full 10-question version of the video in the member forum. So if you like this and you like our other products, you can become a pro member. And the easiest way to do that is actually by going to SuperfastCPA.com and signing up for our free 1-hour webinar training. We will teach you the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam. It's only 1 hour long and it's free. And from there, you will have a better path to learning about and becoming a SuperFast CPA Pro member. So check out the webinar, check out becoming a pro member. If you liked the video, make sure to like it and leave a comment. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.